and welcome to the postgame show here on the Firebird Broadcasting Network. For Eric Elger, I'm Peter Frary. Alongside us now is head coach Steve Djurickovic. Steve, the first half, it's kind of been that type of first half this season, and, let's just make the second half like the first half, and then you won't have to worry like that anymore. But all jokes aside, what an effort, outscoring, the run you went on, and you never cooled off. Talk us through it.
I'd be happier with that as well. I thought, honestly, we were really good preparation Monday, Tuesday in practice, and I guess you can't look at all things that way, but the shoot-around this morning, I thought it was flat. We didn't seem as focused. It's sort of that time of the year right now, too, in the grind of conference, but happy with the guys responding in the second half. And, to pick up a guy when somebody gets hurt, not able to finish up the game. Ryan Johnson will be back on Saturday healthy. It was probably just a move to, keep him on the bench for the second half. And proud of Nemi, man. He battled. The offense runs so well with him in there, too. He's a fifth-year guy, or only one on the roster. And, he's battled through a lot these last 5 years, too. And, he knows where the ball's supposed to go. He's a smart player. He's a really physical player, too, going against Jacob Neighbor on the other end is a talented player. And I think he finished the game plus 26 when he was on the floor. So could not be happier with Nemi's effort tonight.
Yeah, what is it? Just looking at the splits, as we mentioned, the first and second half, what does a halftime talk go like when you mentioned kind of flatten the shoot around? And I'm not an expert at, what your team is like, but they seemed a little flat in the first half. What is it that you might have said, or was it team leadership that really flipped the switch for the second half?
Our leadership's fantastic. Our captains do a great job of keeping everybody mentally focused. We've been in this situation a lot before, battling out in a, competitive game. They're playing their best basketball of the year. Yeah. Aaron Wofford's a heck of a player coming off the injury last year. He's getting better and better with each week that he plays, which is scary for the conference because they got three guys that can flat out shoot the basketball. They got a really good slashing athlete, and one of the difference-making posts in the league, and Jacob Neighbor, who there's not many 6'8", 240 guys out there that are going to bury into you and be able to get to the free throw line like he does. So overall, defensively, I think the second half is what changed it, and we want to hold people around 40% or under. I think we held them to 38% again for the game. So we do that, we have a chance to win every one we're in.
Yeah, and Riley Brooks really seemed like he had it going on early with a couple drives to the basket. It seemed like that built his confidence. We know how talented of a shooter is, but it just seemed like getting those early buckets really boosted him, and it seemed like you relied on him to carry the scoring load tonight.
He's getting more and more comfortable too. We have a bunch of it's a different team than what we were last year, right? So it took a little bit. That second half is our best brand of basketball. The ball's popping, the ball's moving, we're getting some short rolls, we're getting some finishes on the back end, we're getting some cutters on the backside. That's what we want to see. And first half didn't seem like we were there. We had 6 assists to 6 turns, which is never going to be good. And we did not handle their intensity and their pressure. And Carroll's so well coached. They're a difficult team to play just because of the dynamic of how they are. Their team is constructed very, very well. They space you out, they attack you, and you're on an island a lot. And there were a bunch of plays in the first half. I thought we were guarding Kobe Simpson fantastic, and ball still goes in the basket. Yeah. Yukalo Simpson, think you're in a good spot, hits that little pull-up one there too. So they got a nice mix of perimeter players with the big guy inside, which makes them a very, very difficult matchup. And, they won 2 of their last 3, lost in an overtime battle out at Rock Island this past week, so they're playing really, really well right now.
Looking ahead to this weekend, you got a little bit of time. What's the next 48 hours going to look like as you, rest, prep for Saturday? I'm sure, because the one thing you do so well, not to compliment you on the broadcast, but is who's that key player that's going to come in? So whether it's a Tanner Lamb, whether it's an Arnold, whether it's a Montgomery, everybody is, the phrase we use in the broadcast is they're ready to answer the call. What's this next 2 days going to look like to get whoever that is to answer the call?
It is that next man up mentality. And our guys are always ready. When their number's called, they're going to go out there and leave it all on the floor, whether that's Mason Miller today, whether that's Nemi today, Nate Montgomery today. And sometimes those are the harder ones to be in, right? The guy's playing 35 minutes. I'm going to go on the bench for a minute. It's hard when it's like, am I or am I not going to get called on today? And you got to be ready when your number's called. So proud of our guys for that. But for the next 48 hours, it's back to homework. It's back to prep. Second time through the league, so we're all a little bit familiar with each other at this point. Obviously, it was a month and a half ago since we saw Augustana last, and they jumped us to start. They were up 18-2 out in Rock Island. We had to claw and battle our way back in the second half. Another poor pregame speech. So maybe we'll do something a little bit different for Saturday on Alumni Day. And we have a lot of alums coming out.
Yeah, well, Eric is available for any pep talks you need. I'm not quite sure if it'll be good. But with that being said, Coach, congrats on the huge win, and we will see you in just a few days.
Thanks so much, guys.
All right, thank you so much, Coach. Again, that was winning coach Steve Djurickovic, 88-68. Eric, as we start rolling through some of the statistics, always a pleasure talking to Coach in the postgame show here on the Firebird Broadcasting Network. Not much more he could say. I think the fact that the players are ready to, quote, answer the call when it's their turn, and they never know when it's going to be, so every player is ready. As we look at the postgame stats, 27 for 70, 5 for 20. Things really dried up for the Pios in the second half, but the biggest differential was the rebounds. 48 to 39, the Pios dominated, especially on the offensive side in the first half.
Yeah, and that's where, it's kind of crazy to think that Carthage was out-rebounded with someone like Ryan Johnson in the first half, and then he goes to the bench, and Carthage out-rebounds Carroll in the second half. And it took guys like Griffin Dawn. How about Griffin Dawn coming up with a handful, I think it was 12 rebounds. Yes, 12 rebounds for Griffin Dawn. So that was your guy who you wouldn't expect someone, not the tallest player, but he really picked up the rebounding load, and then it became Riley Brooks knocking down shot after shot, and then, as always, A.J. Johnson, kind of the closer, Mariano Rivera, if you will. And, yeah, you look at the score, they won by 20. It didn't feel like that most of the game, and just credit to Carthage to really turning it on in the second half.
Yeah, Wofford ends with 11 points. Victorson 14, but 5 for 13. Most of those points for each of these players were first half points. Things just really dried up in the second half for the Pioneers. A big part of that was, the law of averages, but also the Firebirds just were taking such quick shots, heightened the tempo of the game, didn't allow the Pioneers after the first few buckets to really get their composure. And that's the difference that we saw this Wednesday evening in Kenosha. Let's look ahead now for where these two teams will land. For the Firebirds, again, Augustana this Saturday. Then they are on the road at North Park and right back against Carroll on the 5th. And then they're home, the big one, February the 8th, the doubleheader against Illinois Wesleyan. That's going to be the big one, and that's a doubleheader as well. We're excited for that one. That will also be on Marquee Sports Network. And looking ahead for the squads, as for Carroll and the Pioneers, they head to Illinois Wesleyan with another tough battle, so back-to-back, two of the top teams in the conference. Then they're home against Milliken, and once again welcome Carthage on the 5th, and then Wheaton and the Thunder on the 8th. What's coming up for the Firebirds on the Broadcasting Network, you may ask? Well, not only is it the doubleheader, men's and women's hoops this upcoming Saturday, but also men's wrestling will be at 1:30. Next Thursday, we have an off day, is Juniata and Carthage for men's volleyball. And then Friday, the 31st, men's volleyball, Juniata versus Baldwin Wallace, diving, and then men's volleyball versus Stevens. So back-to-back volleyball nights for the Firebirds. For executive producer Mike Love, producer John Voinovich, as well as the rest of the staff and crew, Jeremy Morgan, Ty, Marissa, Addison, Yam, and Natasha. Thank you as always. The student broadcasting crew is second to none. This program has been a presentation of Firebird Broadcast Productions and Carthage College, copyright 2025. Once again for Eric Elger, I'm Peter Ferreri, 88-68, your final on the Firebird Broadcasting Network. Have a good week, everybody.